Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Dadhood. Now, this is a video where I'm following up on my previous video on how did I get married within 2 months, with some of the questions that you guys have come back to me with after watching it. I've looked at the comments, my Instagram DMs, WhatsApps, etc. I've put all the questions together and I'm going to be addressing those in this video right here, right now. All right, first off, which was a really, really good question, is 2 months enough to get to know your spouse? Well, in my situation, I already knew my wife now a little bit already before we kind of got into talks about marriage, because like I said in my video, she was a sister that I already knew from university. Now, me getting to know her at that time obviously wasn't for marriage purposes. It was, we got to know each other because we worked on the same projects in university in terms of the Islamic Society. We were both in the same team. And so from that, for about a year, working together on different projects, you obviously get to know a bit about that person's character, about their likes, about their dislikes, about the way that they behave. And so I kind of got to know that sort of framing of my wife before I got into the deeper levels of it when it comes to actually speaking to her specifically about marriage and our visions for each other when it comes to marriage. So because of that, those 2 months, I kind of skipped all of that, getting to understand who she was generally, and I was able to go straight into the deep dive, deep focused questions. Whereas for other people, they're actually, meeting somebody brand new, like this is a total stranger. So they need to go through that whole process of getting to know them generally and then doing the deep dive as well. So for me, a lot of that general process was already done, alhamdulillah. So for me, the 2 months were easy. Would I recommend that? I would say if you already know somebody, then I would give it kind of 3 to 4 months maximum. And then you'd know whether you need to go ahead with this or not. If it's somebody totally brand new, then I'll put it at a 6 month mark. I don't think it's worth getting into marriage talks beyond 6 months, because you should know by 6 months whether this is somebody that you want to marry or not, whether this is somebody who is going to be a father or mother to your children or not. Whether you see them in your, if you know, in your life forever or not. Beyond 6 months, you're kind of just getting involved emotionally, and it's probably not going to end well. I mean, for some people it does end well, but I just don't think it's practical to say drag it beyond 6 months. So that's my answer on that one. Next question. Right, what questions did you ask? So I mentioned in my previous video that I came with a bunch of questions to my wife now. At that time, I kind of said that I had some questions, so I'm going to pull them up. So first of all, what I did is I opened up with how I view marriage, and I asked her to tell me how she views it. And we wanted to see whether, what I wanted is to see whether the two match up. How different are they and how similar are they? So for me, I was basically saying that marriage to me is a companionship between two people who want to push each other to get to Jannah together. Um, and so that for me kind of encompassed a lot of things when it comes to the institute of marriage. And I wanted to see kind of whether that was similar for her as well. Now that's quite, a simple way of looking at it, or a very broad way of looking at it. But then the next kind of things sort of broke that down a bit more, essentially. So the next stage was for me to kind of go through the list of what exactly I'm looking for in a spouse. And I was giving her opportunities to then respond back to those particular points. Okay, so for example, I said, I'm looking for somebody who is visionary, somebody who thinks forward into the future, has a plan for themselves, knows where they are going. And so I gave her the opportunity to uh, ans- answer, how she wants to kind of come back at that and prove that she is somebody who's visionary or not. I'm not going to go through all of the list, but there were other things like family orientated. What does that mean for you? What does it mean to be family orientated? Um, Somebody who can be supportive of me being busy and active in my schedule. Um, I was looking for somebody who would not work when they have children. So How do you find that? What do you think about that? What are your views on that? Um, Other things was somebody who is on the mainstream understanding of Islam, and what do they think that means? What does mainstream understanding mean? So these are a few points that were quite key and foundational for me. There are other things here, but I'm not going to go through all of it. It's too long. But and obviously it's quite personal to me. It doesn't mean that it's going to apply to your situation. But the point being here is that you yourself need to come to the meeting knowing exactly what you are looking for in a spouse, and then you go ahead and you say that to the person and you give them an opportunity to respond, so you can check for yourself now in your mind, okay, they do have that, they don't have that, they have that a little bit, that's not much of a priority for them, but it's more of a priority for me. It allows you to kind of see where they're at and how much you guys are meeting together. The next thing I did is that I also explained what would I offer as a husband. Okay, and I think that's very important for you to be self-aware and what can you bring to the relationship, and then allow her or him, whichever way, okay, to comment back on that. So, for example, I said that I would have, inshallah, a steady income because I was somebody who was focused on getting a career that would give me a steady income. Um, and at that time I was already working as well, so I could say that. So for her, what does she think about that? Is that important for her? How much does she want me to earn? That's some of the things that she could come back to me and talk about when I bring up this point. I'm somebody who is active in seeking knowledge. Is that something that you want? What does that mean to you? Okay. I'm somebody who wants to be an active father. Okay, so we can bring up the topic of fatherhood here. So I think this is all kind of first stage conversations. Okay, what am I looking for in you? You respond to that, and what am I going to bring to the table? And you question me on that, basically. Um, and then when it came to kind of the next phase, if this phase went right, which it did for me, alhamdulillah, the next phase was like going to things which are a bit more. Um, so these were foundational. Now it's other things, like for example, what's your idea of a holiday? What is your idea of relaxation? What are your plans that you have in your life? What do you really love? What do you really dislike? I didn't think these things were foundational for me. Maybe this is, for you it might be, but to be honest, for me, as the previous things that I mentioned of what am I looking for and what am I going to bring, those are foundational. If we can agree on that, then let's talk about all the other stuff. Um, Also, to point out, I did even mention what I think my main weaknesses are. So at that time, whatever were my main weaknesses, I mentioned that in order for to make it totally clear. Look, this is my weakness. Can you accept that right now? Like I'm working on them, but it's likely that by the time we get married, I wouldn't have fully overcome these weaknesses. And everybody obviously has weakness. You're not gonna get married to somebody perfect, but being open about your weaknesses is very, very important. Okay, next question. Um, how was your nikah done? Okay, cool. So the nikah was done on a weekend in the afternoon. It lasted a few hours, maybe 4 hours or something like that. We hired out a hall, a community hall near my house. Wasn't that expensive, maybe £200 to £300 to hire it for those few hours. It was a segregated hall, so there was a barrier in between that could open and close. In terms of how many people were there, it was friends and family, a mixture of about 60 people. And in terms of food, we went to a local Turkish restaurant and they provided the food for us, which cost about £500 if I remember correctly. Um, I think my suit on the day was maybe £200 to £300. I can't remember honestly. For my wife, I'm not sure how much, but I'm sure it was more than that. Usually, women's, especially Asian type clothing, is a lot more. Um, and we had an imam that I knew personally. He came down and he conducted the nikah. The wali came down, the local imam that I mentioned in my previous video. He came down and we signed the papers. And the imam gave a speech. We had Quran recitation. After that, we had nasheeds playing. We had food being served. During the actual nikah process, where the signing is happening and the speech is being done, the barriers were open so the women could see what was happening, but for the rest of the time, the barriers were closed. We took some pictures and we cleared out. That was about it. It was quite simple. It wasn't very expensive. It was very blessed, alhamdulillah. And after that, we went back to my family house. And that was about it, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, so here's a bit more of a specific question. Do I need to tell my spouse about vitiligo? So as you guys can see, I have vitiligo. The skin pigment is kind of fading away. So I used to be a lot more of this color, and now I'm a lot more of this color. So turning from brown to white essentially. And that's something started in childhood, and it's just started around my eyes and then kind of expanded throughout my body. If you want to get a better understanding of my views on vitiligo and kind of my journey with it, I did a short video on the Freshly Grounded channel, which I'll link below, and you guys can check that out to get a bit better of an understanding. Now, why this person is asking about should I tell my spouse about vitiligo is because not everybody experiences vitiligo the same. So for me, it's very obvious. If somebody's coming to have a marriage meeting with me, they can already see that I've got vitiligo, so they can decide themselves whether that's something that they like or not. Whereas for others, it can be in a hidden area. So for the person who asked this, they said it was on their feet. And so, should I let them know? Should I not? And I would say definitely should let them know, because it could be something that that person finds off-putting. Um, if you never told them and then they saw it after marriage, and they didn't like that, you should have been honest about it. Any medical condition, you need to be straightforward and honest about it. Now, I know vitiligo is not like a medical condition where it's life threatening, but still, it's very important to be honest about any sort of skin conditions, medical conditions that you do have. That's very important for the potential spouse to know. So definitely do tell them. Okay, so last question. What did you learn from the whole kind of marriage process? Um, the main thing I learned is that I learned a lot about myself and what I want in life. So when I first started off with the marriage process, I kind of, like everybody does, you just have this broad vision of like, I want to get married to somebody who's really good and really nice and really pious, and I don't really mind their ethnicity, and I do want them to be looking like this, and you know, and I want them to be funny and all that kind of stuff. It's very generic stuff. And it's only after going through the process do you get to kind of refine exactly who you're looking for. And I think that process is so important, and I always tell people that even if you're not looking to get married, like move in with somebody in the next couple of years, start the process of looking now, because it doesn't mean that the next person that you speak to, you have to get married to them. It means that you're going to start the process of discovering exactly what you're looking for in a spouse. So when I started that journey, I didn't have too much kind of specification on what I wanted. But towards the end of that journey, when I spoke to my wife now, um, I was a lot more clear. Okay, this is what I want. This is who I am. This is what I'm bringing to the table, and let's start the conversation there. Okay, and if you can accept all of that, and I can accept your answers, then we can move on with the rest of the things. And it took that process of going through kind of speaking to this sister, speaking to that sister, speaking to this dad, this brother, marriage profiles, CVs, biodata, whatever you want to call it. Going through all that kind of stuff helped me refine exactly what I was looking for, how I view my vision of marriage, what I see in a spouse, what I expect from a spouse, and moving forward from there, basically. The other thing is that, in the process, I learned a lot more about what the rights of the wife and the husband should be, and exactly kind of how this marriage of the institute should work. That you should be looking at your potential spouse firstly through the lens of, is this somebody that is going to take me towards Jannah or not? Then looking at, okay, is this somebody that I can see myself being I feel physically attracted to, and so I can spend my days, spending time with him or her because I feel so attracted to them in terms of their beauty. And you should be looking at them. Are they going to be somebody who's going to be a mother or a father to my children? Can I actually see those traits of motherhood and fatherhood in them right now? Okay. Um, Also looking at your potential spouse through the lens of their family as well. That's something that I learned through this process, is that you're not just getting married to them, but you're getting married to their family as well, because the two families are going to come together now. So are the families compatible too? Now, obviously, you're not going to put as much weight on the families as you are on the person themselves, but the family thing is still very, very important to consider. Um, so these are some of the things that I did learn about the whole marriage institution itself. And also, a very, very key thing is that, are you the type of couple where you are going to show them their rights and they are going to show you your rights without expecting the right from each other? This is a very important principle in order to get along well. So that's what I learned from the whole process. That's all the questions for now. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any other marriage related questions, if you want me to expand on anything, then I will, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.